So today we're going to talk to Karen about what it means to have her authority, which is the self-projected authority in human design. So our first question is going to be, in your own words, what does having this authority mean for you?
It's been quite a journey. And I think initially when I discovered I was a projector, I was a bit like, well, what does that even mean? And but I actually really quite like being a self-projector once I got to understand that. And for me, it means I need to hear my voice, to hear my truth. And I think there's a little bit of waiting, there's a few things in human design that get a little bit confusing for some people about, riding the wave and waiting to be invited. But a projector gets to speak their truth. And a large part of coming into my authority was learning to listen to my own voice. And I actually have 6 gates in my throat, and I actually have 6 quite nuanced voices, and it's been really powerful to learn to understand that and to learn the difference between my different voices. And so one of the most useful ways for me to come into my authority was I have a couple of friends who are specifically my soundboards, and they do not give advice. I will actually ring them and say, hey, I just need to sound this thing out. And if people give advice, it can actually really we talked about it's like a physical pain. If someone gives advice, it cuts off my flow. So finding the right friends, and I have that, I'm very fortunate. And I would just speak until I reach this clarity and I can feel the difference in my voice. It kind of comes from my heart, my G center, and then I have real clarity and I hear it. I hear the truth, and I now know there's a decision that is very clear for me, and the path forward is very clear from that.
No, I love that. Every time you talk about authority, it's so beautiful, and you guys really are speakers in your own way. And for anyone who's watching this, when she's talking about the gates, she was expressing that each gate has its own, voice, and so she has so many, like having 6. That's a lot of those gates that you have in your throat, and so yeah, being able to tune into what voice is coming out is pretty amazing, and it's all coming from this place of your soul, which is even more amazing. I mean, what an incredible way to express yourself in a world that, like, often I feel like we can't really hear people's truths, or people are afraid to speak their truth out of fear of hurting others. So the fact that you are able to just speak that in such a soulful way is kind of amazing. And I think that this authority specifically is a wonderful guide for people.
Yeah, and it's learning to trust that and override a lot of the conditioning. And a lot of us have had our voices shut down, or we've hidden our voices, or we don't even know how to hear our own voices. And so, one of the things I love about being a self-projector is it is, and my motivation is hope. I'm not sure if we said that. So when I'm speaking of hope through the 1-8 channel and from my heart, that's where I make a difference in the world. And so my self-projected authority is also the place that I make a difference in the world from that heart center.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And I think that speaks volume as far as how important authority is as well to people. I think that it's one thing to follow your strategy, but the authority is so key as well. So another question I really wanted to ask was, do you think is the biggest misconception people have about your authority? Because I do know only about 2 to 3% of the population have this authority. So what do you feel like people have a misconception about it? Or what do you feel like people get wrong about it?
Well, there's a lot of discussion in the projector communities about what it means to wait to be invited. And I feel that some people, with the best intentions, get a little bit bogged down with, in waiting to be invited means absolutely everything, when it's actually the really big decisions. And so even in some of the bigger projector groups, the sense that we have to wait to be invited even to speak, when actually that is our authority, is a total misconception, because we need to speak And that is a self-projected thing. That comes from the self rather than from something external. I think that's one of the big misconceptions. And there was something that Ra said that made a lot of sense to me, is like our G centers, like our in self-projected, is like the hummingbird. It takes us in the direction. If we are going in the direction that we love and follow what lights us up, he said, we almost can't get it wrong, as long as, I think, we don't go or do what we know we shouldn't. So if my heart kind of contracts and I do it anyway, that's when all hell breaks loose in my life. But if I am following my heart, and for me, it's often quite a physical sensation. I feel my heart contract or expand, or my G center, whatever we want to
Yeah,
call
or
it.
your
So
chakra. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
I love the way that you said that, because I think we had mentioned this earlier when we were talking, but I feel deeply what you're saying, and I resonate with that a lot, even like so, because I have a defined G center. And I think anyone even watching it, if you have one, I think oftentimes it is this physical feeling for a lot of people, because I noticed that for me as well. Like I do feel like when I'm not being my true self, I can feel it, or yeah, that like almost restriction feeling, or that pain in your heart of like, I'm not being myself. And I think if you have this authority, that's probably amplified a ton as well. And it's a really good thing though. I think sometimes it's really good to have that kind of physical sensation, because it's like such a good reminder of like, okay, this is not like, I need to go back to the right path here.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing that we talked about with if someone is speaking over the top of anyone really, but projectors, it can cut off their flow. And we talked about that the other day as well, as being like, it actually can, if I'm in my flow and am speaking, say, for example, particularly from the 1/8, which is a really significant channel for me, if someone cuts that off or speaks over the top of it, it's like a punch in the heart almost. It's a really physical sensation. And I mean, obviously, I can't speak for other people's authorities, but I think for a self-projector, that is, um, it's like an injury.
Yeah.
It's a really significant thing. I mean, I guess someone like Ra would say we're with the wrong people if that's happening. And I think maybe the next is learning how to work with that and move on from that really, really quickly. Yeah.
And I definitely understand that whole part of like, I think sometimes in human design in general, the bigger it gets, the more it's going to be hard for people to kind of remember that all of this is their own journey, their own truth, in their own way. So whatever it is that human design means for you and the value you take from it, express it in your own unique way and whatever it is. And all we need to do is just respect other people's truths. And I feel like that's all even your like that authority is asking, is like, you are the self-projected projectors are genuine people who like their authority is speaking their truth, speaking from the soul. So it's almost like you guys are the guide, or the standing like you're an expression of what we all should be doing. And I think that's pretty amazing. And I wanted to definitely give you or talk about the 1/8 channel, because I know that having whatever channel is defined from your G to your throat is so significant in this authority. So you want to talk a little bit about you want to explain the 1/8 profile to everyone, and then talk about what that means to you?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Like for the self-projector, the channel, whichever channel they have from their G center to their throat is the key to everything. And
Yeah.
so for me, it's the 1/8 is the voice that speaks of what it is we want to create, of where it is we want to be, and of hope and of inspiration. And so, and if I meet someone who also has a 1/8, no matter what their authority is, when you have those conversations that both sort of are coming from the 1/8, it's like it's world changing. I mean, that sounds like such an exaggeration, but you can just feel like this is how we can make a difference in the world, and it's through um, not through kind of all love and light hopium. It's like through real hope and living as hope.
I love that. Living as hope. No,
Yeah.
that's so beautiful, truly. I mean, yeah, it's the 1-8 channel is the inspiration. I mean, it's called the inspirational channel, so it makes a lot of sense. And I feel deeply, even when you're talking, how genuine it is, and that hope is so real and raw for you. It's not this, yeah, it's not this like, oh, you have to have hope. It's like this genuine, real, authentic thing that is just you, and it's so inspiring. And I think people who talk to you just probably feel, even in your aura, the way that you talk, just that inspiration just from that, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. And I think we also talked the other day about one of the things of human design is really accepting our gifts. And I'm Australian, we have this tall poppy thing where, you don't speak out about how good you are, but it becomes even an easier thing. Like, my gifts of being able to um, take in a lot of information and condense it down and make it really accessible, particularly through the 1-8, is no different from the gift of, the color of my hair or the color of my eyes. And so the gift for me in human design has been really understanding what my gifts are. And I guess the other thing for all projectors is learning to um, rest, to take time out.
Yeah.
Because,
Taking
I
care of
mean,
you.
I know there's conversations about our authorities, but it's quite a big thing for all projectors. And, that was like,
Absolutely.
oh, yeah, our life changing, taking time out so that we can actually come from our authorities rather than from this kind of tired brain, tired mind making decisions. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, like, I mean, a lot of people, and I've mentioned this on tons of my videos prior, but I always end up talking about projectors at some point in my video because I am a projector. So yeah, there is this huge difference with how you use that authority. I mean, absolutely 100%. Um, so I think I just want to ask too, um, if someone today just found out that they had this, or they just ran their chart and they figured out that they were a self-projected projector, what would you tell them, or what would be your advice to them?
To immediately start listening to their own voice, to be able to find um, and it needs to be. I mean, not all my friends are able to do what a self-projected projector needs. I have two friends mainly, and we now have an agreement where I will ring and I'll say, hey, this is a conversation where I need to soundboard. So this is, we actually label it, and
Yeah.
and the two friends that I have particularly those conversations with, they also know how to ask good questions. So they don't give advice, they don't speak over the top. And I mean, it's obviously a two-way thing. They're both, by coincidence, manifesting generators. And so the conversations go back the other way, where they need to talk to me and ask for guidance. And I guess that's the other thing as a projector, for all projectors, is also learning to understand other people's authorities. And perhaps that's something that all projectors, but self-projected projectors need to understand other people's voices. Maybe that's the gift of us having a lot of voices, is being able to hear other people's voices too, so
Yeah.
that when a sacral being is speaking from their sacral, and when an emotional being is speaking with that emotional clarity, it's like, oh, there's that voice. They've got there. Yep.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, even like, even though I don't have my throat defined, I know my gates so well. I can tell how much they are my truth, and I can tell how much like even know when it's not the right time to speak, or I just don't feel drawn to. So I definitely love that yeah, how you feel like you can hear that, and that like you can just tell when someone is really coming from that right place. Yeah, and I want to briefly mention that the sounding board thing is so important for you all. I'm for sure. And I think it's important for like every projector. But specifically Karen just said that she labels it, and I think that is such an important thing that you said, because often when we're talking to our friends and we don't label that, or we just start talking and talking and talking, and they want to help, or they don't realize that it's a sounding board conversation, and that's such a difference. So I really love that advice, and I think that's really helpful for people to know if they just found that out, that yeah, to just tell your friends, hey, I just need a sounding board here. Yeah, and asking the right questions can be utterly valuable for sure.
And the other part of hearing that voice is when you're not clear yet, is knowing when that's happening. Like, you know, one of my friends will even say to me, you're in story now, like it's speaking from the mind. And so
Yeah.
you know, we wanted to be speaking from our heart. If we're kind of a bit confused and it's not very clear, and what we're saying is looping, particularly when you're starting to loop and then go into stories about what happened in the past, which is, you know, we can all go there,
Well,
then
yeah.
we're not speaking from our authority at that
No,
point. So
yeah.
it's like recognizing when you're speaking from your authority and when you're not speaking from your authority. And I think if you could do that, your whole life will change.
Yeah, and I think right there, that gives me such an easy way to express how different authorities can be, because when you do like a sounding board, when you'll either, yeah, that's like for you going those circles and stuff, often that's just, yeah, you're not ready yet, or you just don't know. But for me, that actually releases this energy I don't need. That's like what sounding boards are for me. Cause like I have emotional authority. So if I just like constantly keep everything in my head, sometimes my emotions overwhelm my thoughts. So spitting it all out just kind of helps release stuff that I don't need. Where for you, you find that clarity. So it's so amazing how different, how unique like every single one of us are. It just so bizarre to me. Like we just don't really even realize how beautiful it is that we are all so unique and so different, and it's all perfectly designed for us.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, you've expressed that so beautifully. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Um,
Mm, truly feel
only
free.
one
Yeah.
only one other thing that I think makes a difference for as a self-projected projector, because it's also about direction and going in the direction that you love, and it's your heart that takes you there. I think that also for me, I mean, I'm an architect, environment's always been important, but I think my heart needs to be, or my G center needs to be in the right direction. And so I've just moved state, for example, but it was a G-centered decision. It was that real, I need to leave where I am, and I need to be and um, one of the big learnings for me was I don't leave places, I get drawn to the next. And I think that is also quite a strong part of the G center. And it cannot make sense. Like I was living in a really beautiful environment, and so to kind of uproot and go somewhere else, I mean, I live somewhere beautiful now, you can see behind me, but
Yeah, I know.
it was a real being pulled, and it's a G center pull to another direction, to go in that other direction. And it may not make sense. You know, some people, you know, you could even have people try to talk over the top of that and go, why are you doing that? And it's just like, because
Absolutely.
I just must do that. So
Yeah.
um, and then lots of things fall into place. Like
Yes.
if you follow your heart, you're not pushing, it's not taking a lot of energy. You know, we had miracle after miracle that kind of fell into place in order to make that move.
Yeah, because it was right for you, so that it will. Yeah, I love that, and it just makes me want to express to everyone that like, yeah, just I think specifically projectors, but it can be for anyone. Like people always want to. Sometimes we'll talk over or not have the same opinion and want to say like that's crazy or don't do that or that's not you. You know, but you have to follow what's right for you at the end of the day. So whatever that is, as crazy and bizarre as that is, it shows a lot of amazing courage and fearlessness when you are just finally able to be like, you know what, I'm going to do it, and you see how beautiful that can actually turn out for you. Because I think a lot of that, we're often just so held back by fear of like, well, this just seems crazy. Why would I do that? And we miss those opportunities. So, what a beautiful example of like, you know, just going full force and being courageous in that moment.
Yeah.
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 Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I think this is going to be incredibly helpful. Like, I love this. So, it's been amazing.
Thank you. I've loved it too. I hope this does help somebody who's just discovered they're a projector.
Yeah.
It's a great journey, and welcome.
Awesome.